All right. Coming to you from a very different part of the world this time. We'll give it a minute or so for the various streams to kick in. It's very exciting to be here in Greece just because there are so many reminders of just how long the wisdom that I talk about, that we all talk about, that we seek has been around. And on that note, I have put together a collection of the greatest Greek philosophers, the most well known and what they've said. So we're going to spend some time today. I'm going to read some quotes and dive into each one a little deeper. At any point, you can ask questions. You can raise your hand on your end, those who have logged in through StreamYard. And I can bring you up on stage if you feel like it. So let's get started. Now, the three big ones that everyone has heard of in some form or fashion are Socrates and Plato and Aristotle. And they really are a sequence of the three great philosophers. It all started Socrates, and then Plato was a student, and Socrates was a student of Plato's school. They all vary in their sensibilities, which you'll notice very quickly when I read the quotes. So very different people will have a different take on things, even if not in the meaning that they're trying to convey, but certainly in the essence of their personality. And that's really what makes all of us so unique, is it doesn't matter if somebody else out there has your idea or is talking about the same things or is building the same product or service. It's always going to be different from yours because we all have our own life experiences, and that's what comes through in your voice, in your energy. It trickles down into your product or service, into your organization, into your team, based on who you are. And you are unique. No one has lived your life. And so contained within that statement is also the realization that no one can save us from ourselves, from the world, from our struggles. We have to figure it out ourselves. We, each and every one of us, have to walk the walk and take, as they say, each step along the path. But as always, it's about the journey. It's not about getting to anywhere. There's so many paradoxes in life, and they all kind of revolve around coming out of this outcome-oriented mindset, feeling driven to experience some expectation, achieving some goal, creating a plan and pursuing it. And in the process of that, we forget about the journey. We're always looking towards the final output, the final piece. And we think it's fulfillment, and it may be, but it's temporary fulfillment. It doesn't last very long. It subsides, and then we're left to be starting out with the same spot, from the same place of like finding another thing that we think will make us happy, and then pursuing that. So we can spend most of our life chasing our happiness. The remarkable thing is, once we refocus and recognize that happiness is in every single moment, every new moment that comes along contains the presence, the peace, the fulfillment, the answers that we're looking for. And especially that presence and that peace and that stillness within ourselves, not just on the outside. The outside is always just a reflection. So everything we seek in others, find it within yourself first. That's what it ultimately points to. You can try to seek it in others: love, fulfillment, trust, care, confidence, feeling taken care of, feeling loved. And then they can do their best, but they cannot satisfy our void, fill our need in the exact same way and precisely the way we need it to be filled in order to feel complete. So it always comes back to ourselves. in every situation. That is what we spend our life moving through situations, and we put conditions on those situations. We put conditions on our relationships to fulfill our voids. We put conditions into our work, our projects, our goals. These are all big and small conditions that we expect the world to fulfill us in a certain way, the outer world. And then the whole journey is to realize that happiness is 100% within our reach, but it's 100% our responsibility. So you have to take responsibility for everything that you're seeking on the outside and recognize that it is found within you. So there's a fun exercise when it comes to whatever it is. It could be if you're seeking something in a life partner, romantic relationship, or if you're seeking something from your career, if you're seeking something from starting a new chapter of your life, from moving to a new city, a new location, in search of something, whatever it may be. Write down all the things you hope to find, you hope to achieve, and then turn it around as a mirror and look at yourself. And those are the things you have to work on within yourself. Those are the things you feel like you're missing. And there's nothing wrong with this. This is how life works. We don't do anything without feeling like it will make us better. It will make us happier. That's the whole motivation behind life. So unconsciousness, really, this feeling of lack and that you're not good enough, it drives all of our actions. There's nothing wrong with that. Otherwise, if we were complete, if we were perfect, we just wouldn't even be alive. Wouldn't be here. This is Earth School. It's meant for you to look at, create situations, manifest from whoever you are, and then through the external representation, learn more things about yourself, get to know yourself better, so that eventually we can graduate when we know ourselves fully, when we no longer have distance to ourselves, when we've accepted ourselves, when we surrender to ourselves. And that is a surrender to our divinity, our higher self, our conscience. And as we surrender, we get closer, we move closer. With acceptance, we reduce the distance between us and that which we're seeking, which is to feel complete and whole. It's just our thoughts and our limiting beliefs that are in the way. All right. I love this stuff. So let's talk about a few of the quotes. We're going to start with Aristotle. Some of these are really breathtaking. To think that 2,500 years ago, there were people running around talking about these very same things. And some of them were extremely well known, and some of them were even emperors. If we have time, we'll get to one of the 5 emperors that reigned. There was peace for about 100 years during the Roman Empire, where you just had a period of, for some reason, of a succession of the good emperors. These were extremely conscious human beings, and a lot of the wisdom we have today was captured by them, and it led to a very peaceful society, which one could think might be a template for how to create a prosperous world. But these were monarchs as well. So it's when you have a benign, conscious monarch, things are easier to implement. Most of the time, they're not benign and not conscious. Okay, so Socrates is known for, one of his most well-known quotes is, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." And I think the Buddha had a similar response to a disciple who asked something, what they know and why they're so wise. And it's knowing that you know nothing. There is nothing that is ultimately real in the outside world. It's just assigned meaning. We assign meaning through the lenses, through the filters of our conditioned self. And then we think something is something. But nothing is something. Everything just is, and we come along and we assign meaning. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, except, there's nothing wrong with anything, except when we assign blind meaning, meaning something we've inherited, something we've been imprinted with, or that we're just not even aware of. We've been raised to believe something, and then we just blindly carry these truckloads of labels and definitions and meanings around with us. And we walk that way through the world. First of all, it's a heavy energetic burden. You wind up being very defensive because you cling to this mental labeling of things. And worst of all, you identify with these labels and definitions. And that's what creates a lot of friction. That makes you feel small and helpless and lonely and scared, like it's you against the big scary world. You have no space, no freedom to allow things to be. You're constantly agitated in the smallness of each belief because you're so identified with it. And if there's some other contrary voice that you encounter, you immediately feel threatened because it's your beliefs that you identify with that are being threatened. So to know that you know nothing, that is the ultimate freedom. That is the ultimate state of flow, because you're also not interfering with life happening with all your definitions and labels. You're just allowing things to be. You're coming out of the subjective reality of your lens and your filters and your expectations, and you're allowing more and more objective reality to happen. Objective reality is meaningless, and that at first sounds depressing, but it's not. Objective reality is things just happening before we interpret them. So if we can come out of our preconceived, blind interpretations and actually just see what is happening, then we can respond to the reality as it is without bringing our baggage into play. But to get there, we have to come out of our judgments, our reactivity, all of our attachments to all the stuff we're identified with, all of our beliefs, our feelings. But that is ultimately what maybe Jesus referred to as heaven on earth. It's right there in front of us. In fact, it's inviting us into the fold constantly. If we can see things as they are, hear things as they are, feel things as they are, then you notice how the distance to the world shrinks. You get pulled into the detail through your senses. It's a very simple mechanism. If we don't resist what we're seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, feeling, if we get out of our own way, so to speak, then we can experience things clearly as they are. And in that isness of those things, as Eckhart Tolle would say, there's a miracle of just everything is a miracle by virtue of its existence. And where else would you want to live but in that place? So the goal is not to know more. We live in a world that is constantly driving us to accumulate more knowledge, also accumulate more things, accumulate more stuff, more power or more wealth, but it's all in the external. And we attach ourselves to all of those things, and that's ultimately becomes an insufferable weight that eventually we realize it's there, and then we get rid of it. The only opportunity there is to become aware of it sooner, to not have to manifest so much from lack, to not have to spend decades of your life chasing your happiness, some external situation, only to realize that it actually points back to you, to the void within you, and that's where you need to put your attention. So we can speed things up a bit if we become aware of things sooner, and letting go of beliefs, holding everything as true, seeing nothing as right or wrong ultimately, because nothing is right or wrong. It just is. And then attaching yourself to the things that you do want to, that choosing to believe a thought, not just believe any thought that comes along, but choose which ones to give your attention to. Which ones you give your attention to is, those are the thoughts you become. Every thought has an energy associated with it, positive or negative. Makes no difference. Is, do you choose to give your attention to a particular thought? When you have that ability, then you're free. Then you're in control. And even positive thoughts have a weight to them. And every thought that you give your attention to becomes the sum total of your existence, of how you feel right now about your life. And you could have done amazing things for the last 10 or 20 years, but if you've been giving your attention to, say, negative or heavy thoughts, dark thoughts for the last not even day, then you feel down. You feel the weight of the thoughts that you have given your attention to. So letting go of your attachment, breathing space, becoming aware of thoughts, thought awareness through meditation. Meditation can take many forms. Just like going to the gym, you can sit every day and practice, have a solid session that way, but you have to also take that into your day. You don't just lose the muscles you build at the gym the moment you walk out of it. You take that with you and apply your new developed strength in your day-to-day. Your strength, the energy of feeling great and being strong and being in your body and having that glow about you. You don't leave that at the door when you leave the gym. So take the peace and the presence that you nurture in your meditations into your day as well. You bring yourself wherever you go. All right, I'm going to switch to the next quote here. Oh, yeah, Socrates is also known for the unexamined life is not worth living. That's a pretty direct statement. I personally try to be more gentle and soft, but he had no qualms about stating it very directly. When you don't examine your life, something gets lost. You're missing something, an opportunity to go deeper. On the larger scale of things, I would say just because you spend a lifetime or even 100 lifetimes requires you to believe in the infinity of your being. Sitting around not doing much, not looking within a whole lot. Many people are like that. It doesn't mean that something isn't still happening. So I would add or augment Socrates' statement here that you're always examining your life. It just, sometimes it goes more slowly. Sometimes you have a rest lifetime. Maybe last time you were just full on a spiritual warrior and you OD'd on your self-discovery work. And now this time it's about learning just to sit still and not do much. It could totally be, we don't know. So it's easier to accept that everything is always evolving in the way that it should than to say somebody wasted their life. There's no such thing. Even an earthworm builds some capacity, some learning. There's something that it recognizes about itself and about life as it goes through its cycles. You can see that. They're excited. You look at the tiniest little creatures and the way they turn their heads and they're looking and they're seeking and then discover a leaf or whatever they're touching and they explore it. There's an evolution happening there, even in the tiniest creatures, even in the rock. Here's a great one, another one by Socrates. I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make them think. That's very true. So all the great teachers make a clear point that they are not to be blindly believed. They are not to be blindly followed. They are seeking to create equals. Jesus, Buddha, everyone says, and more contemporary ones, everyone says the same thing. It's like, don't just believe me. reflect on that within yourself and see if it resonates. Is that your truth? And if not, don't believe it, just because somebody with a famous name said so. And that speaks to an even deeper truth, one that is very dear and dearly held in Buddhism, is that, again, you need to walk the path yourself. You have to feel and experience your truth. The 3 stages of wisdom are: 1, exposing yourself to information. That's what you're doing right now, just by being here. 2, intellectually understanding what you're hearing, what you're taking in, so like getting it. And all is great up until that point. Many people get what they hear. But the crucial 3rd stage of true wisdom is to internalize it, to feel it, bring it into your body. And that's only when you spend enough time in immersing yourself so things really sink in. If you're just listening and then you jump to the next distraction or the next activity, things don't get a chance to sink in. So again, allowing yourself to feel your feelings deeply brings you to that point. We've been taught to avoid feelings. There's been entire generations before us, especially for men, that were taught feelings are not to be trusted. They make you seem weak. It's crazy. It's crazy that there was a time, and still in many societies today. It could be in your own family structures where you're not allowed to express feelings. But the deeper you allow yourself to feel, the closer you come to your truth, the better you get to know yourself, and then you can live from the truth within as opposed to the mental knowing. Mental knowing is unreliable, it's flippant, it's the monkey mind that jumps around left and right. But your inner knowing is stable, it feels what you're meant to do, essentially. And that is your GPS. That is your unique blueprint that resonates or doesn't resonate. We try so hard to plan out our life. We plan out our whole life. 5-year plan, 10-year plan, 20-year plan. We plan out our life up until death, essentially. That's what society tells us to do. And worse is we plan out our life ahead of living it. Nothing can resonate unless you actually start doing, unless you actually start making it real. You don't have to overcommit to something immediately. Just take 1 step or 2 steps in a particular direction. You will immediately feel it if this is right for you. You then back out if you want to try something else. So you have to start exploring. You have to start feeling whether things resonate or not. And you can't do that by just sitting at home on the couch thinking about things. You have to start doing, start making it real. That would be my suggestion there. All right. I'm going to move on to Plato, and you'll immediately feel very different sentiment being expressed by him. Also, the same kind of deep wisdom, but he's a different person, and he has something else about him. Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a harder battle. Right? So there's empathy in that quote, for example. These are the highest. I've ranked them by the most popular, most revered quotes. And so there's an empathy in somebody having a harder battle, I would add to that quote, than you think, than you assume. Because we always tend to assume everyone else has got it easy and they've got it made. And we look at them and say, why aren't they struggling? How come they figured it out? And I'm a certain age or I have certain degrees or whatever, and I haven't figured it out. What's wrong with me? So this comparative mind that we have, again, we're in our head when we're looking around, is looking for, when you task your mind to find somebody who's better than you, it will find it. It will see that. This is the crux of living in our head, is always looking for threat, it's looking for danger from a place of looking out for us. But that's an old way of living, an old mode, when at a time when threat was possibly around every corner. There was a tiger waiting behind every bush, waiting to eat you up. That's no longer the case, but the mind is still like anxious like that. And it's looking for reasons to get upset and be alert and looking for problems to solve. So we create these problems in our heads, and we look at others, and one of those problems is that others have it better than we do. And we can be so consumed by that. And then if you reflect on that, if you're able to come out of the identification with that particular belief, because it's anxious and it pulls you into the rabbit hole, but when you come out of it, most people, and you can ask yourself, can reflect on that and go, well, I don't really know them that well. I don't know what really goes on behind closed doors. I'm seeing a snapshot of, maybe even on social media, we know everyone's doing the best angle they can show themselves at. And it's just like a split second of who they are. We don't know who they are and what they've gone through. So you could reflect on that and go, why am I projecting all of this happiness onto them and feeling the lack within me? To come out of comparing yourself to others is one of the great benefits of meditation, because you're so focused on your body, your sensations, becoming contained from the outside world. The mental truth is what feels triggered and threatened by others' opinions. But your inner truth is just rock solid. The more you live by your inner truth, the more you can hear others say or do whatever they want. It doesn't faze you whatsoever. You want them to discover their truth and go down their path. Encourage that. So a trust and a confidence set in when you are in your own power, and that's coming out of your head and into your body. Right. We can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy of life is when men are afraid of the light. Isn't that amazing? So deep and so beautiful and so poetic. Completely different way of looking at the world, yet pointing to the same wisdom. Again, if you have an idea or a speaker or a teacher of something, or you're writing a book, or you're creating a business, or you create art, whatever it may be, don't be afraid that others are doing the same. I have enough business background, by the way, to tell you that that's a good thing, because it means there's acceptance in the marketplace when you see others doing the same thing. It's much harder to put out an idea, both from funding, getting investor interest, but also from a marketplace viability standpoint. You need a much longer runway if you have just a completely novel idea that you're bringing into the world. Then if you're bringing one into the world that is already accepted in some way that others are doing. So don't let that stop you, actually let that encourage you. It means the path to your blossoming is shorter, because you don't have to do the work of explaining yourself or explaining what you're bringing to the world. Okay. But focusing on the evolution that the statement points to, that as children, we're allowed to be afraid of the dark. It's part of our growth. And then as men, that we should not be afraid of the light, men and women and people. So what a wonderful way to paint in a single quote this bigger picture of our evolution. And that, again, something gets lost when we don't go deeper. So you can see how they informed each other. And here again, I would say that they're missing, both Socrates and Plato are missing the elongated, the more infinite being picture. They tend to, it seems like they're thinking of life as a beginning and an ending, and less as a continuous, more Eastern incarnation cycle. But that's okay. Let's go to Aristotle. Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. I would again add to that you've been learning to know yourself. You've been getting better at knowing yourself the entire time. You cannot improve your self-knowledge. It's happening on its own. You cannot avoid it. So it's always happening. There is, the beginning would be when you're born, essentially, but not even then. It would be like your soul, the essence that you bring into the world has been doing this forever. But that's where wisdom comes from, self-knowledge. This is, it's not the infatuation with the external. It's not the external successes. They can help. If you reflect on them, then they can point. That's what they do. They can point back to yourself. Oh, I just achieved something, and it's not as fulfilling as I thought it was. I'm proud. You should celebrate your successes, but then they fade. So there must be something else. And if you do that enough times, then slowly but surely you've looked everywhere else for your happiness, except within yourself. And then that might become an option eventually. So it doesn't matter how obsessed you are with the external. We should be. It's an amazing three-dimensional sensory experience that we're in. We don't get to have these sense perceptions and when we're in spirit form. Those are just energy imprints at that point. But while we're here, we should enjoy the environment. We should not be faulted. We should not hold ourselves back from just experiencing our physical form as fully as possible. And from the infatuation with the external, then we eventually are pointed back to who we are, because the external is our mirror. We're always just experiencing ourselves. The world that you see is your world. Nobody experiences your world. Every single one of us experience our own world. It's amazing. Our own subjective reality. And very few, if anyone, at the tail end of your evolution can get to the point where you're experiencing objective reality, just seeing things as they are. It's a question of degrees. We can move towards that. We can get better at that. But it's a journey. And in the meantime, we're experiencing ourselves in order to get to know ourselves better, in order to let go of the things we believe we are, because we've realized we're not those things. And they're not permanent. That life is impermanent. And the only thing that is permanent is finding back to source, finding back to where we came from. All right. Another Aristotle quote, educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. Isn't that great? These were the greatest thinkers 2,000 years ago saying these things. And yet we look around in our society today especially Western society, has completely abandoned these ancient principles. Everyone is focused on mind, accumulation, thinking, power, control, obsessing with knowing more, having more, concerned with what others think about you. That's the worst thing of all that we struggle with, is thinking, what is everybody else thinking about me? And everyone's doing that. So essentially nobody's thinking about anybody else. Everyone's just thinking about themselves, thinking about what others think of you. It's crazy. So these are the things that we are consumed by, we get conditioned by in the modern world. And that's what we're facing. And we have to learn to let go of. Come back out of this, the chaos of the mind, and back into stillness and the presence of just being in our bodies. Here's another Aristotle quote. It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. So that's thought awareness that we mentioned earlier. Having the freedom to choose which thoughts to give your attention to. Now, the ancient Greeks thought of it as educated, that you were an educated person if you were what you would, in our language now, call spiritually in tune. And they just thought of it as more of a higher educated person that has that sensibility. But that's what it is exactly, is being able to have thoughts, notice them, and choose which ones to engage with. If you can just improve that aspect of your life by 1%, by 2%, 5%, 10%, it will change your entire experience. If you come out of thoughts, being lost in thought, by a mere 5%, 8%, 10%, it adds 10 years to your life. When we're lost in thought, when we're identified with thought, we're not really here. We're in the tiny little space of the thought, attached to whatever it tells us. We're not really present, perceiving the environment, connecting to our senses. We're lost in thought. And if you can be lost in thought, even just 10% less, then that adds a big chunk of time to your life that you're actually here, able to experience the world, do things, respond to things, engage with things in a meaningful way. 2/3 of our life, of every single day, we spend lost in thought. So you can do the math. If you just come out of that little more, then it adds real time, real life that you can benefit from. The last Aristotle quote: "No great mind has ever existed without a touch of madness." Ooh, what might he mean by that? What I think he means by a touch of madness is existing on the edge of the unknown. So the mind feels in control, it feels confident, it feels like it can believe things when it can assign meaning, when it can project something it believes it knows. It doesn't matter what, just as long as it believes something about something, it's at peace for the time being. But to exist on the edge of the unknown, to be comfortable with the unknown, to be comfortable with uncertainty, that is a touch of madness that I think this quote refers to, where you can allow things to unfold, be part of the unfolding, not just once they've happened and then you kind of put a label on it. By then it's dead. Whatever you label, whatever you put a definition on, it's already happened. It's over. It's not the spark of creation. It's not the moment of happening. It's post that, right after that. And so now you're just dealing with something that you know, something that's essentially dead because it's already defined. And so when we live through our head, we're living through dead things. We're just experiencing this a very muted version of life. The aliveness of it is extremely diminished, if it's even there. So to learn to move up to the edge and be comfortable with the unknown, comfortable with being here now as it's happening without any expectations, learning to trust yourself that whatever happens now, I will know how to respond to it, that what are the constraints at play, observing that, using that to participate in the unfolding of life, and not to have this image that you came in with that you're now comparing and getting upset about that it doesn't match. That is what presence is. And ultimately, non-resistance, to be in non-resistance, is not just to be present, it's to be in love. You have to let go of all your judgments and your labels and your definitions, everything that you've engaged your mind with and on. When you remove all of that, when you can let go of your limiting beliefs, then you get to a place where everything just is as it is, and with no distance between you and it, the feeling that emerges is love. The absence of resistance is love. It's quite a beautiful design when you think about it. The intelligence behind this has created a system that challenges us to grow, that challenges us to, it doesn't annoy us to annoy us. It annoys us because it doesn't want us to stay small. It wants us to be whole. And it's crazy that we're in resistance to that. Well, we're in resistance to our wholeness because growth hurts and it's uncomfortable. But that's what we're ultimately longing for, is to be complete, to be whole. That's what we're seeking in our environments, in our relationships, in our goals, in our pursuits. And that formula is right here in front of us. It's baked into the design of our existence, that all we have to do is learn to resist less, accept more, learn to see things as they are, not as we want them to be. All of this moves us closer towards unity consciousness. In the process, we get to experience who we really are. We let go of limiting beliefs, of the feeling of not being good enough. And that's how we get to back to source. And when we get there, we graduate from Earth. That's it. That was it. In essence, it's a very simple process, simple design. We just make it extremely complicated on ourselves and each other. Now, the interesting thing I wanted to bring up about the three philosophers, they're quoted as being, Greece being the cradle of civilization. It's the beginnings of great Western philosophy. But it strikes me as being totally un-Western. The West does not abide by these principles and these insights and these wisdoms at all. So how have we gotten to where we are today? If that was the beginning, we're not even a shimmer of a reflection, resemblance of what was originally there. Sometimes it feels like we're going backwards. But again, it's not about looking at society as a whole. It's about looking at you in detail, you as the individual, you on your journey, your path, and your truth. You could even argue that the fact that the world around you is madder than ever before, that is growth material, that is superfood, that is the fuel for your own personal evolution, because it kind of wants to make you grow out of that and away from that and into a better place. So the more you're surrounded by madness, the more it pushes your individual soul growth. Again, it's not pleasant, but that's what's happening. And when you expand into the infinity of your being, then you don't have the fear of and attachments to the physical, to your form self, attachment to your beliefs that keep you stuck in the three-dimensional. As you let go of all those attachments, those beliefs, your vibration starts to rise. It will stay contained, but because it's in your body, if your vibration gets too high, then it can't stay in your body any longer, but you do feel it rise substantially. And so your attachment even to your body, to your physical being, starts to subside. It gets softer. The focus on it is not so important. And you lose your fear of beginnings and endings. You lose your sense of urgency that somehow your life will be a failure, or that you must do something or get something accomplished now. None of that is real. And you recognize that it's not real when you start to detach. And detach does not mean moving away. It actually means moving in. It means getting closer to the essence of who you are. It's not apathy. Detachment means you're no longer keeping yourself at a distance to certain parts of you by judging yourself, by labeling yourself, by criticizing who you are, by not wanting to be parts of who you are. That's what's keeping you away from your essence. That's keeping you at a distance. So acceptance, detachment actually brings you in closer to your essence of your spiritual being. I do want to use the last few minutes that we have here to chat about Marcus Aurelius, who I mentioned as one of the 5 good dictators, monarchs of the Roman Empire. And he had his famous book is Meditations. It was actually a diary or a personal notebook that he kept for himself. And let's read a few of his quotes. The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. It's been around forever, as I say it again and again. Wise people, conscious people have known this for millennia. Which thoughts you give your attention to, that is what you wind up feeling like is the quality of your life. And we'll close it out today with a short thought awareness meditation. What you put in is what you get out. The more you practice thought awareness, the more you go to the gym, spiritual gym, the more you develop that awareness muscle, and the more you become who you really are, which is your awareness. If you can be aware of your thoughts, if you can be aware of your feelings, then you're not your thoughts, you're not your feelings. Well, who are you? You're the awareness behind all of that. So to live more and more and more from your awareness and less from your attachment to things. Thoughts come along. It's not about stopping thoughts, but it's about having the ability to choose which ones to engage with and to allow feelings to arise and pass fully and not injecting yourself and pushing away the unpleasant ones or clinging to the pleasant ones. That's what gets us into trouble. But to truly allow yourself to flow with life, feel your feelings. When you realize that your feelings are really, they're just like this. And then the story you put on top of the feelings is like this. If you come out of your personal narrative, then the feelings are not so rough. They're actually quite easy and light. And some are not that pleasant, but they pass. Everything comes and goes. So internalizing the impermanence of life, that's another one of these pillars that through meditation, through mindfulness in your day, wherever you are, the arising and passing of everything you experience becomes more internalized. It just takes a while to sink in that nothing is static. The mind likes to isolate one moment in time and say, this is it. This is good. This is bad. This is something. This is right. This is wrong. This is for me. This is against me. These are statements of permanence. And nothing is permanent. It is what it is in that moment. Feel it as it is. But it can never be so intense when you recognize that, well, let's see what the next moment brings. And let's see what the next one brings. And tomorrow is another day. Let's see how I feel then. There's the pressure you put on yourself by thinking something is immense. And to come out of that, to release that weight, then you start to flow with life. Then it's all not so serious. Then you can quickly, you know how you laugh about something afterwards, after you've gone through it? It was tough moment maybe, but afterwards you can laugh. Well, if you're no longer really attached to every event so much, you can start laughing about it much sooner. You might even start laughing about it while it's happening. All right. And then lastly, another Marcus Aurelius quote, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Just be one. And that is a great wrapper for today's session is take action, make it real, start being the person you want to attract. Write down all the qualities, like I said, that you seek in someone else, and then turn it around and look at yourself. And those are the qualities you need to develop within yourself, because that's what you feel you're missing. And you will never find it in someone else. It's not fair to put it on someone else. These are the conditions that wind up creating problems and pressure and can crush a good thing. It'll be a lesson, but it didn't have to be crushed. You didn't have to bring your conditions into the mix. Focus on yourself, free yourself first, heal yourself first. Then you're ready to free others and heal others. I hope that was enlightening. We're going to wrap it up. Unless there's any questions, you can put that into the chat. Give you a minute. Sometimes it takes a while for them to come through. And then we will get ready for our final meditation here. Okay, let's do some thought awareness. I'm going to guide you through it. It'll just be a 5-minute meditation. You can do this anytime, any place. If you're waiting on someone, that's an opportunity. Instead of getting upset that they're late, see it as a blessing that you get to strengthen your awareness muscle. The breath is the simplest tool to use for this. You can do it with anything. You can practice staring at a candle, your finger, but the breath is this wonderful universal tool that everyone has. And the moment you put your attention on your breath, it pulls you out of your head and into your body, into the groundedness of just being. So even just a second of noticing your breath will keep you balanced throughout the day. Second here, second there, 2 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, whatever you can squeeze in before an important call, before an important meeting. Just focus, notice the breath at the entrance of your nostrils. Keep your attention there for just a little bit. It'll work wonders. What was good becomes great. What was maybe a close loss becomes a clear win. So shifting your reality just a little bit into more presence brings immediate benefits, immediate results. Okay. So finding a comfortable position. Spine straight, bones stacked. And with your eyes and mouth closed, bring all your attention on the incoming and outgoing breath at the entrance of your nostrils. If you have trouble locating your breath, you may breathe slightly harder once or twice. And once you feel the touch of your breath, return to natural breath, normal breath. Let the detail of your breath pull you in closer, closer into the present moment. If your breath is shallow, let it be shallow. If your breath is deep, let it be deep. If it's more in the left nostril, let it be the left nostril. If it's more in the right nostril, let it be the right nostril. Or if it's in both nostrils, let it be both. Notice the temperature of the incoming breath. Notice the temperature of the outgoing breath. And notice if there's a difference. Notice the pace of the incoming breath. Notice the pace of the outgoing breath. And notice if there's a difference. Notice the length of the incoming breath. Notice the length of the outgoing breath. and notice if there's a difference. And whenever you find that your mind has wandered, simply notice it. And without frustration, without dismay, but with full acceptance, bring your attention back to the incoming and outgoing breath at the entrance of your nostrils. Natural breath. Normal breath. Observe your breath as it is. Without needing it to be different. And when you're ready, gradually blink open your eyes. Notice your environment. Notice yourself in your environment. Notice the energy in your body. Notice your peace, your presence, and your stillness. Stillness is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of consciousness. Thank you all for joining. As always, I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Signing off from the Acropolis in Athens, Greece. See you next time.